So my talk is about pulling in the same direction with autonomous teams. So the question is, why would you want to have autonomous teams in the first place? And the way I see it, they have two major benefits. One is that they, let's assume we are in a complex context, which you often are in software development. They can actually outperform teams that are organized in functional silos because they can make decisions faster and better where the work is actually happening. And two, they're also more rewarding and motivating for the individuals that work within those teams. And as we've heard already several times today, this autonomy is helpful for motivating. Okay, so then the question becomes, if those teams all work independently within your organization, how do you get them to actually pull in the same direction? And I think we're actually doing pretty well at this at Stylight, where I work. And I think I identified the three core ingredients that make this work well for us. So those are the three things we're going to talk about today. Turn this on. Awesome. So my role at Stylight is Agile Coach, and the way I interpret it is that it's my responsibility to support teams in becoming more effective and self-sufficient, but also to help the organization where they operate in to actually let them by leading through trust. So that is the reason why I care a lot about autonomous teams. So for me, autonomous means that our teams don't need constant input from outside. They can just work on them by themselves. So we could basically send them off to a remote island with fast Wi-Fi, and they would just keep producing more value for our customers. Okay, so like I said, this talk is how we get from a company strategy over here that is set by about 10 people within the company to an executable plan over here that can be carried out by about 200 people in 13 teams. And there's those three pieces in here that we're going to talk about that I think are essential to make this work. So imagine you sit with the rest of your colleagues in one room, and the CEO of the company presents the company strategy for the upcoming year. The natural question you would ask yourself is, what does it mean for me? What am I supposed to do, and how is it different what I'm supposed to do tomorrow than what I did yesterday? And so, like I said, these three components, they are essential to make this work at Stylight and to turn the vagueness that is within the strategy into certainty of an executable plan. And that certainty, that is an essential human need, really. So when you don't have enough of it, you feel insecure and uncomfortable. But when you do, you feel at ease and confident, and you can actually perform at your best because you know what to do. So what we already heard is this is an experience report as well. So I'm not going to tell you what you have to do in your organization, but this is what works for us. And also, we don't manage to do this perfectly every single time with every single team, but this is what we're trying to achieve. And I'm also assuming that this strategy over here is kind of derived from a grander shared purpose that you all share within your organization, because otherwise any strategy you can come up with is going to be pretty shallow and uninspiring and people won't care. Okay, so once a year, sometime early January, the leadership group of the company gets together, and in a magical process I won't go into, they come up with the strategy for the upcoming year. And then we all sit together. So the pictures I have here are not stock photos, they're actually photos from our office. So we all sit together in the atrium and we talk about it. What's the strategy for the upcoming year? And that really sets the direction and the boundaries for everything that follows. So for all the other pieces, this is the starting moment. And then we try to keep this strategy front and center. So by keeping to talk about it, it's not enough to just say it out loud once. You have to see what progress you make. And we do this in an all-hands meeting that we call Strategy Monthly, We do it once a month. We talk about the strategy. And so there we basically talk about the progress. How much progress have we made on that strategy that we wanted to achieve? And does it still make sense? Is it still what we should be doing, or do we actually have to adjust it? This is basically the main slide that we use this year. So we talk about it once a month, and then we have another meeting every week with everybody. And there's basically a quick reminder slide of this, without really going into detail. Just this is strategy. These are the current numbers, just to keep it fresh in our minds. So you can trust me. By the end of February, everyone knows this slide or the current version of it inside out. Okay, so then the first piece of the puzzle, which you also already heard in the keynote today, are OKRs for us. And so when I first started at Starlight, beginning of last year, I think it's fair to say that I was a skeptic of this whole OKR thing, because I didn't really understand how they're supposed to be different than from the classical or the traditional targets that that someone sets and some other mere mortals have to scramble to try to achieve them. But now I came to terms with them, and the way I understand them now is that they consist of two things, basically. So a set of inspirational qualitative objectives, and one example could be something like value and improve employee satisfaction. So that's a great thing to do, but it's not very actionable. So you add a set of measurable and quantifiable key results to it that make it actually measurable if you can achieve or how much progress you made on that objective. So that might be something like improve one employee satisfaction score by 5% compared to June baseline by the end of Q3. So that's a mouthful, but it's also very specific, and you can actually measure it and you can grade it. Are we there 50%? Are we there 70%? Are we there 80%? You can actually see progress throughout the quarter. So if we do those OKRs quarterly on a team level as well, and anyone within the company can just open this OKR folder, and they can check out any past or present OKRs from any team within the company and what progress they made so far. So that provides a lot of accessibility. I don't want to say transparency, but accessibility to data. So by now I agree that those OKRs, they have one major benefit for us, and that is that they help us to get to a shared understanding what each team, or what the goals of each teams are and how they relate to the company goals. So they make it really very comprehensible what success looks like for every single team. And that's pretty powerful. So it really feels like having a grasp on, at least on a high level, what everyone within the organization is doing. So if these dots in here are, you can't really see those, but there's more dots. If all those dots are teams, then you kind of have a grasp on what is everyone within the company, or at least every team, what are they up to? What are they trying to achieve? Okay, so what to keep in mind, or how we use them. I think the key to successful OKR process is really letting the teams own the OKRs. So as well, the process as well as the actual definition of them, or what they are. All of that within the boundaries of the strategy, but in there, it's theirs. So no one else is grading them on, they grade themselves. So the process at Starlight looks something like this. Beginning of every quarter, every team in one or several facilitated sessions, they come up with the OKRs they think are the most important ones to achieve the company strategy. And then in the next round, every other team gets to challenge those OKRs. So, you kind of understand what every team is supposed to do, and every other team gets to challenge, is that really the most important thing, or should you be doing this? And based on that feedback, they may or may not adjust the OKRs. And then that is what they're trying to achieve the upcoming quarter. One thing that I find quite interesting and that I didn't foresee at all is that allows us to have a discussion about to what degree we are focusing on customer problems or company problems. And for us, that's not always the same thing. And it's usually the teams themselves that push for more customer focus, whereas usually the business, presented by the management pushes for more business focus, things like revenue numbers, that kind of stuff. Whereas team might push for, let's make the users happy, and numbers are second. Similar like the strategy, it's not enough to just define OKRs beginning of the quarter and then check in the end if you achieve them. You need to keep talking about them to keep them alive and to keep them useful. And we do that in that second all hands meeting that I already mentioned. That is the team weekly, team as in the entire company. And there a representative of each team presents their progress of the last week in one or several key results that they made, or maybe that they didn't make. So just the most shareable thing that everyone should know about it.
What's happening if the team doesn't make the numbers in a week or over some weeks?
Then we all know about it, and we can see if they can ask for feedback or for help. But there's no one saying, oh, you didn't reach your numbers this week, better do better next week. It's not how it works. So it's about sharing and getting everyone on the same page. It's not about controlling. Does that answer the question?
And it's team-based, so
It's
there are no
team-based.
individual.
No, we had individual OKRs for a while, but they were more about personal development rather than what I have to do to help my team. But for some people they're helpful, for most they're not. So by now we have them optional. If you want to use them, then you can, but if you don't, then you don't.
And how many does one team have?
So teams usually in those sessions they come up with a whole wall of post-its, and we try to get them to have as few as possible. Best only one objective and maybe 3 key results, but sometimes it's more. But that's the OKR limit that we try to strive to. Yeah. Okay, and then there's a few things to keep in mind, and that we actually ourselves have to remind ourselves all the time, and so that I think they might also be helpful for you. So one is to remind yourself that OKRs exist to set clear priorities, to align everyone towards the same goals, not to control people. And the second is that at this stage that we talk about outcomes and not about outputs or roadmaps. That comes later. So who's been there last night at the session Stop with Why? That's basically it. Why are we doing this? And then how we get there and what we want to build, that comes later, but not at this stage. And you cannot use those OKRs for employee evaluation, like on an individual level. If you do, then people will just sandbag their forecasts and they'll game the system. It's just how humanity works. And then I see a real danger that you're actually too much driven by only those quarterly numbers and lose sight of the long-term goals. Because I'm convinced that there is stuff that you cannot measure within a quarter. And if you only focus on those things and never work on anything that's valuable long-term, then you will also lose in the long run. So that is one of the things I have really problems with the whole OKR thing, because how do you get this long-term component into? Okay, so back to that graphic. So the strategy really sets the boundaries for those OKRs, and the OKRs are supposed to pay into that strategy. The next piece of the puzzle is sprint planning. And I won't really go into what it is, because I assume most of you know what it is. So in one phrase, it's regular planning sessions to build a product increment. So not one big plan for 5 years, but every 2 weeks, see what we need to do next. So our sprints are 2 weeks long, and that's actually a time frame that everyone can fit in their head. And so if OKRs define what we want to achieve as an organization in a quarter, those sprint plans, they tell us on a team level what we want to achieve the next 2 weeks. And that really helps you to decide, okay, what can we do today? What step can we make today towards those OKRs? So it really feels like knowing on a team level what we should be doing next. And that feels good. That's a piece of nice certainty right there. Oh, this is what we need to do. Good, let's get to it. So all our teams get away with 1 hour of planning, approximately 1 hour planning per 2-week sprint. And I think that's less than the industry average, I would say. And we get to achieve this by keeping the planning focused on a shared understanding on a high level. We don't go into detail at this stage. And then if we have complex tickets, which we try to avoid, but if there are, then there's a kickoff session right before people start working on that ticket, and only with the people that are actually going to work on it. So ironically, this actually requires our teams to be comfortable with some degree of uncertainty on a ticket level. Whereas we try to get certainty, a lot of other pieces, that requires them to be somewhat, it's a bit vague, but I think we can do this.
So you don't need a definition of ready, because you try to kick off complex things?
There is a definition of ready, or many teams have definitions of ready, but they will be on a very high level. So one might be, we are able to give an estimate, like roughly how long is that going to take, and then if we can do that, we think, oh, we kind of understood what it is about. But you know, t-shirt sizes thing, not into detail. So in order to get to that shared understanding and to enable everyone within the team to work on any ticket, it requires the entire team to be there at the planning. And sometimes you get people like, oh, do you really have to show up for planning? Like, yes, you do. And it's really only 1 hour every 2 weeks. That's doable. It's not a lot of planning that we're doing, but in there you have to be there. And then the actual plan that comes out of it is not even important. We might, you know, a team might change that plan during the sprint. That happens. So really the key outcome of that planning is actually the activity of planning together and getting to that shared understanding what we're trying to achieve the next two weeks. So the prioritization that we do, or that the product owner does within that sprint, is informed by the OKRs. And then whatever we achieve within a sprint is supposed to pay into those OKRs. So every ticket can actually have a description which key result it's supposed to improve. And then we can, in most cases, actually measure that. So at this stage, we A/B test a lot. If it doesn't improve the key result that we thought it should, we throw it out again, we try something else. And then this sprint actually splits up the work into chunks that everyone can fit in their head and they can actually reason about. Okay, this is something we can achieve the next 2 weeks. And then the last piece of the puzzle is UX research. And its role is really to bring the perspective of our users to everyone within our teams, and then to, in return, the team trying to achieve the best experience for our users. So I don't expect you to know what we do, but I'm telling you, we are building a commodity product. There's tons of other companies out there that do a similar thing as we do. So it's really on us to build a product and a brand that people recognize and that they love. If we fail to build a product that people love, they'll just go to some of our competitors and buy their products there. It's very clear. So having this insightful UX research is really like knowing what our users want us to do. And that's some more nice, cozy certainty there. Oh, this is what they want us to do. Let's give it to them, and then they'll come back. So we have UX research specialists within our website and mobile team, and they basically set up this UX lab, which is pretty much a living room within our office. So we bring them in through the back door so they don't see our office. They go into that room, get to sit down. There's a TV running in the background. And we perform tests on them, which is basically they try out our website or mobile apps or some prototype of it, or they sort some objectives or something like that. And then each of these sessions is assisted by a random team member, and that's very powerful because there's really nothing more humbling than watching someone sitting there and aimlessly tapping at a screen, and they just don't get it. And you know, you were really proud to have built this, and then you watch someone like, what is it supposed to do? What am I supposed to do here? And that's really powerful. So also we live stream that session to everyone else on the team. They can watch it if they want to, they don't have to. It's on a private channel and they can watch it later if they want to. So there's actually a little hidden camera here in this plant. And, they sign a paper that says they're okay with that, without anyone's reading it. But and then, so what actually makes life harder for our UX researchers and also our designers is that we ask them to do all this in sync with our incremental development cycle. Because they usually like to make big changes and try big things. And we said, yeah, that's all great, you can do this from time to time, but we also need you to find out incrementally what we should be doing next. So we have people come in regularly, and we want that feedback just in time to inform that next planning session. So we can, or have the latest data of what we should be doing.
So does it mean every sprint?
It's usually every 2 weeks. Sometimes we skip one, there's every 4 weeks. So this would be one of those sessions live streamed. So you see the phone, the stuff that's actually going on the phone, and you can watch the person using it. So the UX researchers really support role on those teams, and they're supposed to help the team understand the users. It's explicitly not only her responsibility to talk to users, it's team discipline to understand our users. So she should definitely not be the only one who talks to users, because the whole point is to make the feedback cycle shorter from our users to our people who are actually developing it. If we make a UX researcher an intermediary step in that process, that's totally counterproductive. So each quarter, after we're done with setting our OKRs, those teams sit together in an ideation day, or sometimes they'll even make an ideation week, and they try to come up with a plan. That's where the roadmap stuff is happening. With the plan, how can we achieve those OKRs? And then the OKR UX research, like I said, really guides what we plan then the next sprint, because we have the latest feedback on the stuff we built previously. But vice versa, this sprint planning really sets then the rhythm when this needs to happen. And then one last thing, there's a dotted line. I think something that we're not really good at is, and I would definitely like to see more of that, is that the UX research, stuff we find out from our users, steers more our strategy. Because right now it's very much driven by business numbers, stuff like revenue. How much revenue are we thinking we're making in that section? How much do we think we're making in this section? But what we want to build for our users, that would be more inspiring in my idea. And that's in broad strokes how we get from a company strategy to an executable plan. And I think these 3 puzzle pieces are really the essential parts to turn this vagueness over here into the certainty of, okay, I know what to do next. And they do so by providing certainty on 3 levels: on the organizational level, on a team level, and on a market level. And one last thing. So I think these practices are very valuable and helpful, and I do want to encourage you to try these in your organizations. But make no mistake, in an environment of fear, these will just foster more control and more fear. In an environment of trust, however, they'll foster more collaboration and more trust. So if strategy really eats, or if culture really eats strategy for breakfast, then those practices are just a side dish. So if your OKRs are actually targets that are set from above, and people just need to fulfill those and are controlled on it, then you won't get alignment on it. Doesn't matter that you call them OKRs. If your planning sessions are liveless and people are playing on their phones while some so-called product owner tells them what to do the next 2 weeks, then you won't get to shared understanding. And if UX researchers actually make the feedback cycle longer instead of shorter, then you won't build a great product that people love, because you people don't know what they're supposed to build. So if these practices really help you to empower your teams to be more autonomous, it really depends on how you apply them and in what context you do that. Thank you.
Thank you.